Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I wanted to talk about my trip to France, and I want to talk about the wedding that I went to. It's the first wedding that I've been to, and I'm an autistic person, so it is quite daunting, I guess, but it went really well, and I was really happy with it. I will make a separate video of me ranting and complaining about several things about my family situation. Um, but that's a topic for another video. This is going to be a positive one about my friends. I didn't get to meet most of my friends during my holiday because they were all away, but I got to meet this one friend that got married, and then I have another friend who actually was very pregnant during that wedding and who has since given birth to a baby girl. So, my friends are living their life, they're going through the milestones and stuff. And I really, really appreciate my friends. I love them so much. And I know that they appreciate me too. So yes, while they have their partners, it's not like they've forgotten the fact that I exist, that unfortunately happens. But yes, I was so happy that my pregnant friend, or the one who's a new mother, could come because it was 34 degrees outside. But yeah, so these two friends I got to meet when I was 15, and that was one of the darkest periods of my life. That was when I felt, before I met them, I was extremely lonely, and I did not have any friends that year. I started to get to know these people, and so then I became friends with them, and then I got myself out of depression. I kind of somehow I'd had this mask of just like being invisible, and then throughout high school I became more and more like talkative around my friends and more like being myself. And there are some of the people who have been really important in that journey. And so the friend who got married, she wanted to study spiders since I known her, and arthropods, and which is basically insects plus, critters with many legs, basically. So there's probably a better definition than that anyway. But she's done her PhD on bees and how they move. Really interesting that she got to follow her dream, and then she met her now husband at the university in Aberystwyth, where they had in Aberystwyth they had a zoology program that was just zoology. You didn't need to go to biology first. So that's where they met. Aberystwyth is in Wales. And then they moved to London, where he works, and she also works there. But she's been to other places as well with her bee research. So she actually went to Stockholm right before COVID lockdowns hit. That was the last time we'd met, actually. In the beginning of 2020, she did some lectures on bees at Stockholm's University. So we met for that. And I also have gone to visit them in London, the one and only time I went to London. They lived on East End, and the Thames. It was magical because it was a very, very tiny house, and it was very dysfunctional in many ways, but I fell asleep to the sound of the waves, and we saw so much, and they were so kind to me. And I would say that my friend is a very kind, beautiful, whimsical person, and her family is too. They really are. They're part Scottish, so there were some people in kilts. It was really hot, I don't know how they managed with the wool of that, but it was 34 degrees and I was sweating a bunch. But we were up in the mountains, so it wasn't 40 degrees like down in the valley. But okay. I'm so glad that my pregnant friend could make it, because that must have been tough. And it was just so lovely because everybody was so including. And it felt like I was part of the family, even though technically I'm not. Most people who were at the party were part of the family some way or another. And I was one of the only like satellite friends of the bride, So I had met several of the brothers and sisters before at some point or another. I had met one of them back when she was in London. I met one of them when I was doing a music class in my hometown in France. Another one I know that my brother went to music class with. They were a very musical family. One of them became a sound technician. And then there was another one who went to medical school, but didn't manage, so kind of like I did. I know their partners, and I know so I've always kind of, my family and their family have kind of been on the periphery of each other. Never really truly, get to know these people, but they've been in my hometown for my whole life. And so it's not a super huge place. So you get to sometimes see people at times randomly throughout life. And apparently we went to the same playgroup, me and this girl. So I don't remember that, but my mom does. So that's how I know her. And also she is, I think, an INFP, so she is very whimsical. And I thought that she was an ISFP because she was so connected to her interests that are pretty tangible, so she was very interested in music and very interested in, actually she plays the flute, and she was very interested in insects. But I realized that our entire humor is any stuff. It's any SI stuff. I think that we are both INFPs, and it's lovely to see, an INFP like thriving in life. And it's just lovely to be around people that you feel a comfort, familiarity with, And she still is the same person despite all the growth that we've all done. And there are certain expressions that she still uses, certain mannerisms that she does, and she actually took time to sit by me quite a lot she was very split. The attention of a bride at her wedding is like extremely split between many different people. I think that she had like 70 people at her wedding. Not the biggest wedding, but it's still a substantial amount of people. And I could mingle. I talked to several of her uncles. One of her uncles actually drove me up and down the mountain where the wedding was held. And I talked to the aunts. And, there was one aunt who had this really deep story about how her family were Jews in Belgium during the war, and how there was this whole thing of like, if you were pregnant and you were Jewish during a certain time, it was safe, but it wasn't safe afterwards. And so there was this whole scheme, and she talked about that whole thing. And then I talked to the brothers, and I talked to this girl. She was really interesting. She was the brother's girlfriend. And she was really into she studied theology and was really into the occult. So she actually had done her studies infiltrating cults, which is like, my special interest. So I was really interested in talking to her because she had actually gone to like the Freemasons and like talked to them about their secret handshakes and stuff. And she'd actually studied them. And so she's had to mingle with these people and, not trick them, but like, be friendly and interested. And so she'd been in very interesting situations. So that was a very interesting conversation. We also had a discussion between the sound technician, the person that she's together with, the brother, and then there was this other guy. He was like yogurt tester or something. Like his whole job, he worked for like Danone, I think. So, big company, not very ethical, but it was interesting because one of them was like a sound technician and he was like refining sound, and the other one was like refining the tastes of the yogurts. And it was just, so I got to sit at like the French people table basically during the wedding. We ate duck, which is something that she liked to cook back in the day. So that was pretty nice to know. It was kind of like a little sign, and the wedding invitations had like dragonflies on it, and her dress had butterflies stitched onto it by the groom's mother. Very beautiful. The parents also did really great speeches. I also met an Australian. It was her cousin's boyfriend, and her cousin and the boyfriend are both medical students, and they were in Melbourne, and then they'd moved to Ireland, and now they're moving to Perth, I think, to do their residency. So we had a really good discussion about like socialized medicine and stuff like that. And these were just really lovely people. And the cousins and just all the people. And it wasn't like I was forced into anything that I didn't want to do, So I was there and I had a good time. And I went dancing with everybody else. And I think that we, it was like no stress. They were really chill people. And it's like there was no expectations of acting in a certain way or anything like that. That's what I love about her, and I love that about our family as well, that they're so open to things. And my friend is the kind of person who will just start singing like a little tune out of nowhere. And one of them, I got emotional only at one point during the wedding, okay? It wasn't when the bride and groom kissed, because that's... Okay, well, first when we came to the wedding, my friend did not even have her wedding clothes on. And we were like, what are you guys doing? You're not even dressed properly. And they were like, yeah, we just wanted to make sure that you came, and stuff like that. So, okay. But then, finally seeing the dress, seeing her hair all done up with jewels in her hair and everything. And when she popped out, she was so embarrassed. And it was just so funny. It was so funny because she was so embarrassed. And like she's supposed to be poised and happy, but she was like not. And so she put like her flower bouquet in front of her face. She was like, no. And like she mouthed at me because I was sitting at the very back and they like started from the back to the front. She was like, no. And then then they went to the front and they had this whole speech that was very moving, very lovely. And, I pronounced you husband and wife or something. And then like, you may kiss the bride, and then they kissed. They put the rings and that. But they'd already done this whole ceremony at the mayor's office beforehand anyway, so it was like the third time probably that they'd done this. I don't know if they got married in a church, but yeah, we were outside. And right when they kissed, and it was like, I pronounced you a husband and wife or something, and then it was like, you may kiss, and then my friend was just like, yay, like this, yay. And it was like so her, and it was so silly. And yeah, it was lovely. And then this is at the point where I got emotional, was when I heard the music that came later. And it was, I don't know if it was Sick who recommended this song, or it's Cécile Corbel. She wrote the song called, it was Arietti's soundtrack. And then we had to do this love tunnel thing where basically it's just like 2 rows of people, and we were like, woohoo, woohoo, and they, pass through. And I heard that song, and I was like, oh, of course my friend chose this song. This must be her favorite song, And my friend is very interested in music, and so I was like, oh wow, yes, of course this song would be at the wedding, and I just felt everything fall into place, like things made sense. It's a bit strange being at a wedding, because it's like, I know this person in a strange way, just being a friends during high school, I was one of the least connected people to the other people at the wedding, most people were related or intermarried in some way into this family, or into the groom's family, but I just was a friend, and so but there I felt like, oh, I know my best friend, I know her, of course. And she was a really big Studio Ghibli fan, and she liked this specific kind of classical music, and Cécile Corbel is the INFP artist, it's just so her, and then we had the food, and we had the dance, and the dancing was just us being silly together, and we kept the dance floor going. Some of the older people got drunk real fast. I think that we had a good time, and then so I got to know the people at the barbecue, and I got to know more people also at the brunch. The brunch had some of the best croissants ever. We also had really good cheese, and it was just nice. I could couple away from the world for a while, just be in this utter state of reminiscence and celebration for the future, and it was just funny to hear different perspectives on my friend and her husband, and to know that, like, yes, I agree with everything that you guys say, even if there's a huge chunk of our lives that we haven't really connected. And I actually asked my friend, I said, I'm sorry I couldn't see you in London last autumn. I was just so not doing well. And I told her, like, I've been working on, taking care of myself so that I don't burn myself out and stuff like that. She was like, no worries. She said, I'm glad that you told me. And I also said, like, she was like, thank you for being here. And I was like, well, thank you for inviting me. She was like, well, of course. And I was like, yeah, but, I'm just your high school friend, I didn't know that you cared about me to the extent that you were going to invite me to your wedding, And she said, yeah, I I just looked through the people that I had contact with this past year. And she said, for me, that's not a lot of people. And I understand that she doesn't have that many friends per se, because her family is so large, so she has people to socialize with like all the time, she always has people to visit in her family. But when it comes to actual friends, I realized like, I have the same amount of connection to her than she does to me. And I'm so unused to that because, all my life, like I've cared about my friends much more than they have cared about me. And so when I encounter such a situation where I realize like, oh, they do care, I get, it's strange, And so I was very moved by that. Like that she actually appreciates that I write to her sometimes, like it's not just me sending a meme sometimes that includes an insect, or sometimes I'll send her a picture of an insect and I'll be like, what is this insect, can you identify it? And she gets really happy getting this, and seeing her, we were on the grass eating croissants at the brunch, and she actually she'd seen some insect in the grass and then she was identifying it, and it's just lovely to see her in her element, and to see that even if she she gets embarrassed by things or she finds things I think that's, we do connect on we're very similar in some ways, It's kind of interesting because both her husband and I found my friend in the same way, in that I found her singing to herself while we were waiting for her next lesson, I think. And I think that I lost my, I think I was on like the subway, the tram, or the bus or something, and I had left my sports bag on the bus, and then I had, so I had no sports clothes to go to sports class, and so I was really, really sad, because I was also really extremely dysregulated at that time. And she was just like, "Oh, it's okay. You'll find it. At some point you can just buy a new one, and in the meantime, is it okay if I sing to you?" And I was like, "Okay." And so she sang to me, and apparently that's the same thing that she did to when she was in Aberystwyth in her college dorm, basically in the corridor with the flats. She was just sitting in the kitchen and singing to herself, and then that's when her future husband came in. Nobody knew that 10 years later that's what's going to happen, but yeah, and I don't know, it's a little bit like Luna Lovegood kind of vibes that she gives off. And I think that is a very INFP way of being. And there is something attractive in that. So I say myself as an INFP, right, obviously. But I do think that there's something very special about, people being dreamers, being whimsical, being excited about small things in life, being, childlike, and not so overly concerned with the boring, annoying things in life, the difficulties, the struggles. Of course, she's had to work hard on all sorts of things and be, we all struggle with different things, but like, she's such a pure soul, you know? And so I was really moved by that. And then I also met with my friend who is pregnant and, well, who now has a baby girl. And yeah, I just realized I was standing there and I looked at her and I was like, you know, yeah, I was thinking to myself, you know, I've had a crush on her. I had a crush on her, and now she's together with this man and they're having a baby, and this is the course of life. And I felt kind of this oneness with everything. I think that it's kind of like the NI stuff. Like, you know, you perceive all time all at once, you know? It's not like, you know, people conceive it linearly and stuff, and it's like, no, it's all time that has ever been and that ever will be is like in this moment. And so even if I don't like get physically in my body for that, I find myself in this kind of third space in my head where everything coalesces into one dark hole of stuff, or it's like, and it's all layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, all I get amalgamated into one. And in this moment, I was like, oh, you know, nothing makes sense, but everything makes sense, you know? And so I was like, oh, so yeah, all of this that has led us to this point and everything that will come, it's all part of the story of us, you know? And the fact that we've been able to stay friends such a long time is a very beautiful thing to me. And, you know, and so also like thinking about babies, you know, they were talking about pretty gory stuff. It was like the brother's girlfriend, the one who had gone into cults, she had just had a baby like 6 months ago. So we, you know, of course we saw the baby, who was really, really cute. But so they were talking about pregnancy stories, etc., you know, like new parents do. But it was really interesting. And I just felt like, oh, wow, you know, the experience of life is really exciting. There are so many things that people can choose to do and things that can happen without people have chosen to do. And, you know, so now, yeah, my friend is married. My other friend has a child. Here we are, you know, in the midst of it all. And, you know, I'm there too, you know. I have my own things that happen in my life, things I choose to do in my life. Nothing is, you know, life doesn't need to be seen as like this constant chaos of destruction, you know. It can be seen as other things. Is a much more fulfilling thing, a much more meaningful thing, a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad I got to experience that. I'm so grateful for my friends and for, you know, being able to just be there at that point. So yeah, I didn't think that this video was go as long as it has, but I think that it was important for me to go back into that feeling. I will go into a very different style of video next time, but I think it was worth it. So have a good day, everybody. Bye.